We made it this far without talking NFL. That ends now. Week 1 of the season might have made you say, who is this Daniel Jones? The Colts QB putting up big numbers in their stomping of the Dolphins. He became the second QB in the last 30 seasons to lead a team to scores on their first 7 drives of a team debut. He was very good. Threw for 272 passing yards, had a passing TD, 2 rushing TDs in week 1. And when you put that category out there for Colts franchise history, he's just the 4th QB to do so. Funny enough, he's now the most recent since the guy who was his backup, Anthony Richardson. That's the jump-off point to bring in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, hopping on the buzz right now with us this AM. And JJ, we went from a QB battle in the offseason between Jones and Richardson to now me asking you, what happens to Richardson, all because of this great week 1 from Jones?
Well, nothing happens to Anthony Richardson right now. And I would be very, very surprised if anything happens with Anthony Richardson with the Indianapolis Colts in 2025. Here's what I mean by that. First of all, we have spent the last 48, 72 hours talking about just how bad the Miami Dolphins are. So how great is Daniel Jones, first of all, right? You can't have it both ways. It's either the Miami Dolphins are bad or Daniel Jones is the second coming. But Daniel Jones did play certainly very, very well. Now, just like it was with the New York Giants, it's about him stacking these, right? It's about being solid in the second game and in the third game and not just showing the flashes that got him drafted in the top 10, but the sort of sustained success over time. Your question, though, about Anthony Richardson. He has 2 seasons under his belt, but he hasn't played in 17 games total yet. He is now in his 3rd season. He has a lingering shoulder injury that prevented him from truly, really, truly competing day in, day out for the starting job against Daniel Jones. He had the tapping out that happened last year, and the incredible amount of resources that the Indianapolis Colts have put into Anthony Richardson by virtue of his top 5 draft selection, as well as the sweat equity and the time over the last 2+ years. And so, first of all, we're 1 play away from Anthony Richardson going in and being the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts again. We all understand that. But in this realm where the Colts want to trade Anthony Richardson, what are you going to get for him? The absolute most you would get is probably a 4th-round selection, which is what Trey Lance went for a few years ago, which is what Justin Fields could have gone up to when he was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a conditional 6 that could go to a 4th in terms of play time. I find it very, very hard to believe that under any circumstances that Anthony Richardson would even go for a 4th. We're probably talking 5th, max, maybe 6th. And again, because of the resources, because you don't know that Daniel Jones is going to continue this sort of play by the time we get to the trade deadline in the first week of November, I don't see Anthony Richardson going anywhere else but Indianapolis this year.
And he is a guy who is only 23, so you figure time is on his side given the limited amount of playing experience he has dating all the way back to college. Elsewhere around the league, Micah Parsons, that debut with the Packers, that certainly went well. There's been a lot of talk since then about maybe Green Bay having the best defense in the league. But what I want to talk is money, since the Packers gave Parsons that huge deal after the trade. When you keep in mind that contract and how much money he is owed over the next few years, how much will this affect the Packers' ability to make moves and sign other guys that they want to do?
You know, they are fortunate in that they did a really good job with this contract. We see right here the cap hits. So this is not something they're really going to have to worry about until 2028. The cap continues to go up and up and up, right? So $27 million in 2027 is going to be 7% of the cap at that point, 5% of the cap at that point. And so many of these NFL contracts, Zach, we talk all the time, no matter what the length of them are. If it's a 4-year deal, I sit here and I tell you it's really a 2, maybe a 3-year deal. If it's a 5 or 6-year contract, I tell you it's a 3-year deal and a we'll see. And so the numbers are always going to spike, and that's because it's built in, because everyone understands that folks are making money hand over fist in the NFL. The money will continue to rise, the cap will continue to go up, and you'll figure that out down the road. If Micah Parsons is on his way to a first ballot Hall of Fame gold jacket career by the time he's going into his age 29 season, you're re-signing him to a new deal before the 2028 season, regardless of what his cap hit is, okay? So you don't have to worry about that. We just saw yesterday the Packers signed Christian Watson to a one-year deal. The report is it's about $13 million. I and many others around the league are interested in seeing what the base value of that is and what the incentives are. But essentially, they have the money right now. They're about middle of the pack when it comes to cap space for the 2025 season. Next year, it's roughly the same situation. So they have planned very, very well. They have done a great job with their contracts. You just obviously have to keep everyone healthy on such a young team. But if you're talking about the Packers, and if they have the money to make a move down the road, they would have the money. They just may not have the resources. When you give up 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons, when you're the Green Bay Packers and you don't do that to begin with, and you want to keep all of your draft picks as much as possible. I talked about that trade deadline. When we get to Halloween, maybe the Packers need something, right? We don't know if they're even going to have 2 of their offensive linemen for this Thursday night's game against the Washington Commanders. But you don't want to give up any more draft pick compensation because of what you gave up for Micah, even if you have the cap space.
You mentioned giving up on something. News this morning, the Jets are giving up and releasing their kick returner Xavier Gipson. He had, of course, that costly fumble in the fourth quarter, which then let the Steelers take the lead and get the win. How much of a signal is this potentially to you that Aaron Glenn is saying, hey, we're not messing around. You don't protect the ball. You don't do what we need to make you to win. We're cutting bait.
It is 1,000% all about that. You know, for years, ever since they went to those consecutive AFC championship games 15 or so years ago, it has been same old Jets, right? No matter who the general manager is, the head coach, the quarterback, no matter what, it's been same old Jets. Aaron Glenn, who came up in that organization under Bill Parcells, completely knows that. He knew that when he took the job. And so he has changed so many things that you don't see there. And the vibe and how they handle things within that Jets organization. And you know, it's funny. I was in studio on Sunday with Patrick Peterson and Brian McFadden and Joe Musso, and I heard Aaron Glenn talk like, hey, we're not going to stand for that, right? When Xavier Gipson made that fumble. And I said to the guys, I said, hey, he better back that up, right? Because if you don't back that up, the guys in the locker room, they're going to see you huff and puff at the podium on Sundays after losses. And then if you don't back that up with action, they're going to know that there is no stick involved here. And so then what do you get on Wednesday morning? You get the stick. And so Aaron Glenn is making it abundantly clear where most teams probably would have kept Xavier Gipson. Let's be honest, right? Hey, you had that fumble. We're keeping you for week 2. And then inevitably, when another mistake happens in week 6, that's when they cut him. Aaron Glenn is making clear it is a new era, a new chapter of Jets football. Yes, we took the L on Sunday, and there are no moral victories. But this is not going to be same old Jets so long as I'm in charge.
Yeah, JJ, we saw the ball knowers out there on HQ on Sunday. We're tapped in for that as you were tapped into all.
What's up, Vikings Nation? Victor here, and we've got some serious quarterback rumors to dive into. Buckle up, because this one's about Anthony Richardson potentially being on the move. And yes, your Minnesota Vikings are right in the middle of it. The situation in Indy. So here's the deal. The Colts just made Daniel Jones their starter, and that leaves Anthony Richardson, the number 4 pick in the 2023 draft, in a really weird spot. Richardson is only 23 years old, insanely talented, freak athlete, and he was supposed to be their franchise guy. But now, he's riding the bench while Jones runs the show, and according to ESPN, Richardson's camp has already broached the idea of a trade. Not demanded, not forced, but the conversation is happening, where the Vikings come in. And here's where it gets interesting. The Vikings have reportedly shown interest in Richardson. Why? Simple. We've got our rookie J.J. McCarthy stepping in as QB1. And while I love the kid, let's be honest, rookie quarterbacks are going to have ups and downs. Bringing in Anthony Richardson would give us the perfect backup plan. A young QB with a similar dual threat skill set, somebody who could step in if McCarthy struggles or even push him to stay sharp. And long term, you'd have 2 insanely talented quarterbacks developing under Kevin O'Connell. What it would cost now, here's the kicker. The Vikings are apparently willing to offer more than Richardson's current trade value. We're talking about 3rd round picks, maybe even a 2nd rounder. And for a team like the Colts that has already committed to Daniel Jones, that's hard to ignore. Think about it. Indy spent a top 5 pick on Richardson, and instead of letting him sit behind Jones and lose value, they could flip him for multiple high picks and build around their new starter. From their perspective, it makes a ton of sense. Why Richardson fits the Vikings? Richardson is raw, no doubt. In college, he only started 13 games. With the Colts, he flashed crazy potential, but also dealt with injuries and accuracy issues. But we're talking about a 6'4", 240-pound QB who runs a 4.43 40. That's Cam Newton-level athleticism. Pair that upside with Kevin O'Connell's system, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, and you've got the perfect environment for him to develop. And if JJ McCarthy needs time or misses games, Richardson can give you real production instead of the offense collapsing. Here's where I stand, Vikings Nation. I love the idea. It's aggressive, it's bold, and it shows Kwesi and O'Connell are thinking big picture. This isn't about giving up on McCarthy, not at all. This is about protecting him, giving us insurance, and building one of the most dynamic QB rooms in the entire NFL. Imagine being a defensive coordinator, not knowing if you're preparing for JJ McCarthy or Anthony Richardson. That's a nightmare scenario for opponents. But I gotta ask you guys, do you think it's worth giving up a second-round pick for Anthony Richardson, or should the Vikings just roll with McCarthy and trust he'll develop without that kind of insurance? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to Report Vikings, because if the Purple actually pull this off, you know I'll be here breaking it all down. Skol Vikings!